Hey guys, this is Max, and this is another Valheim build video. This time I'm going to be bringing you my Treehouse Tavern build. This build was so much fun to get into. I've been wanting to incorporate some type of treehouse build in my Valheim repertoire, um, and I thought it would be so cool to incorporate it using the Mistlands biome. Now, the issue has always been that the Mistlands biome is a unfinished product as of right now, but I thought it would be cool to use the trees as the kind of the structure holding things together, but then protrude the structure out into the plains area, which is a completed biome. So I'm going to run through kind of my thought process as I go through the whole build and give you my breakdown of everything. I hope you guys enjoy. Let's jump into it. All right, so to kick things off, let's just go over the base materials. So for this one, these are obviously all approximates. I try to keep as much as possible contained in boxes, so that way I have a good account of what I'm using. But at some point or another, I'm probably picking up or pulling from other resources. But so these are rough estimations, and obviously there's probably going to be a couple gaps here and there, but it's about 1,200 base wood. That the big thing that I couldn't really put a finger on was the amount of iron. There is a decent amount of iron that you have to use because of the iron beams, which basically hold up the extended structure towards the end. You're going to need a lot of that. Fine wood. Fine wood's mostly for the kind of the finishing touches. You don't really need a lot of the fine wood for the actual base portion of the structure. But if you want to take into account some of the finishing touches that I put into the house, I probably used around 250. I mean, you could easily add even more onto it. When we get to the actual kind of like, I guess, aesthetic portion of the build, we can go over what you could do as alternates, or what you could potentially add even more onto. And then I guess to kind of even complement the rest of that, 20 stone, there's a couple fires I put, building of the forge, that's why you need the coal, that's why you need the copper. What else? The yellow mushrooms for lighting. I love to have natural lighting in any build that I have. Constantly having to use resin for torches, it can be just a pain. So I try to use as much like natural lighting with the fire skull trophies, or whatever they're called, and and also the yellow mushrooms. I think that they're great, just natural light sources that you don't have to keep up any type of uptime with. So I think that's pretty much about it. There's probably a couple other like subtle things, like I think I used miscellaneous food items and miscellaneous potions just for, once again, aesthetics. But we'll talk about that a little bit more in depth as we get a little bit further into the build. So what I basically started off with was just, I wanted to find a tree, or rather two trees that kind of stuck a little bit further out into the plains. I wanted it to be to where I didn't have to push the structure super far. I didn't want this massive building. I wanted to keep the building relatively small without, getting into this massive, super huge structure. Obviously, you can make your own changes to it, but for what I had, I wanted to keep it a little more tame as far as size overall. So I found two trees that were kind of already kind of peeking into the plains, and the tree that I really wanted to build off of was the one that was like further out into the plains already. So that's kind of how I started my thought process on where to go. And there was a couple different spots that I really liked. The big downside too, as you'll see, like here, the branches can kind of stick through your structure, which, I mean, I think it looks cool. I can see how other people could probably think that it's a little tacky, but I think it kind of adds to it, adds to the whole treehouse vibe. So yeah, so you just start building a winding staircase. One thing to keep in mind is when you build these extra high ladder or stairs, as you're descending them, you have more of a chance of hurting yourself, because you'll go down like a couple of them if you're sprinting, and you'll just start plummeting and you'll lose tons of health, which is a really fast way to die if you if you don't watch out and be careful. So keep that in mind as you kind of go through the staircase. I also kind of went back through and added some guardrails just to add some extra safety elements as I was kind of doing my ups and downs, you know, trying to get materials or repairs and whatnot. So that's basically the starter portion of the whole build, is just kind of laying your foundation on how high to go up, where you really wanted to be, and then I just decided that at this point it kind of like lined up with the other trees, so I started to build my bridge across. Also, as you could see, this is where the iron beams come into great need. In order to build your whole bridge and basically your whole entire structure, you're going to need the iron beams going across to create that foundation from the tree forward. And you'll see as we go through it, that's such a pivotal aspect to the whole build. And you can even see right here, there was a couple times where I'd place a wood plank out and I saw it turn red, and I had to just take a pause to make sure it wouldn't break as I went to go stand on it to lay the next layer. Because believe it or not, I never died in this whole build from falling. There was actually a time where I was down below getting some materials from my little hut station down there, and I got killed by, like, I think a goblin or something like that from not realizing that I didn't eat food or something like that. But never did I fall during the build, which was, I just can't believe it didn't happen. There were so many times where I was just right on the edge or so close to, you know, dying that I was very surprised by it. Also, as a quick side note, I do apologize for how dark it is. Unfortunately, there's no easy way to light things up. Because you're in the Mistlands, everything's just so dark, and I assume that's the ambiance that they're going for, since it's all kind of like looks spider themed, you know, and you know the webs and everything. It's supposed to be super eerie. I eventually ended up putting on I think it's called like the minor cap or whatever the cap is that provides light. And I did it a little bit later than what I wanted to. I didn't think about it until like further into the recording, but yeah, just bear with it. You can see what's going on though. Now, at this point in the build, I don't know where I'm going with it. I knew I wanted it to be, once again, a certain size, but I wanted it to go out further to where I really got the vibe of the plains. I didn't really know exactly what I wanted. I think probably around this point though, I did decide, because it's such a high elevated build, I wanted a cool like wraparound porch. That way I get this like almost full 360 degree view of all of the plains and the water that's out there. So you'll see that come to fruition as I get a little bit further into the build. Here I realize I can only go so far until I start building more iron beams to really keep the support system kind of going. So I had to start doing that on the right side. I connected it to the tree, which was basically the foundation piece, and then from there started to extend out. And I didn't know how many I'd need to go, or if I needed to actually like wrap around the whole structure. Oh, and right here, now you can see kind of more of the view, right? Look how beautiful that view is. That was what I was trying to capture, right? The essence of it. Now it's nice and light. You can see everything. This is what I was hoping to gain during the whole recording. And now I have the miner's cap on, so fun stuff. I guess I should also point out that I am not using any mods. I personally haven't really delved into doing any type of mods, and I think that I would go out on a limb and say I'm probably not in the minority when it comes to that. I know that some people they're just not privy to using mods, and so I just decided to kind of keep it that way. And so here I'm starting to build the overhang for the bridge, wanting to try to keep everything under wraps, so that way, you know, it doesn't get affected by the weather, any type of rain, what wear and tear. Also, I thought this would be just kind of a cool beginning approach, right? If you go up the stairs and you see this really cool like bridge going across with it all covered and everything, I think it would add like a really fun element to it. Now I made the bridge just basically 2 planks wide. I wanted it to kind of be narrow. When I first started and I got to the top of my spiral staircase, once again, I wasn't exactly sure where I really wanted it. And you'll see me here in just a minute. I'll actually end up trimming some of the, I guess, quote unquote fat off the bridge, because I didn't want to put much focus on this portion of the bridge. It was mostly, this was just the starting point of everything, right? So this, you can kind of see how it starts to come to fruition, right? I didn't have a solidified plan, but as the kind of the structure decides this for me. And so as you do your own builds, you have to overcome and adapt to what you basically have available to you. Also, I ended up skipping a little bit of the video as I ran down, and I got some yellow mushrooms, and I got some of the copper nails and fine wood to make the little stand pieces to put the yellow mushrooms, and I ended up creating a little lit up walkway within the bridge, and you'll see it as the video kind of goes on, and it actually adds a really cool aesthetic to it as you walk into it. This is where the fun begins. Finally decided that this is how big I wanted things to be. So then it's trying to lay the groundwork for the actual tavern and how I want the wraparound porch to go, and the lighting and the openings and everything. You'll see it all start to really come together. And there's definitely a couple edits I had to do. It's normal, it's natural. I tried to make things fit as best as possible. Sometimes what you have, the pieces that are available, don't always work out, but this is how it all comes together. So start to build a little ledge so that way I didn't accidentally fall off, which is always good. A little ledge for the wraparound porch. I knew I wanted to build the downstairs bar. I see all these fun builds on like Reddit and stuff that have these really cool little bar areas, and I thought that'd be such a cool thing with kind of transforming more into, instead of just a tree fort, more into a Treehouse Tavern, right? And so I wanted to do an upstairs like little lodging system with a downstairs bar, and then you can walk out and see this awesome view. That was kind of my intent. At this point, I was like, that's what I'm aiming for. So I figured I'd start working on the stairs going up to the bedroom area. Wasn't exactly sure how big I wanted it to be. I figured doing kind of like almost at a halfway mark would be fun. But this is where I ran into a couple little issues with integrity of the structure. You can see things are starting to get pretty red, so I had to start thinking about how I was going to reinforce those. Also, I get to this point here and I realize that it's actually higher than the other pieces of the other wall. So then I had to go back through and start from that side first and then fix things coming over. So you'll see me destroy some stuff and then, make the adjustments. I realized right there that even with that wood beam, it wasn't actually adding any support because it's such a broken like red piece that I needed to add more iron beams within the structure, so that way it provided that extra durability. Had to fix these beams real quick, and then I figured just start adding the rest of the floor. But then I got to these corner pieces, and I kind of had to mix mash and some corner pieces with some straight pieces, so it kind of looks funny. But when it's all complete, you can barely tell. You walk in and you're not really staring at the roof, you're staring at the bar as it all comes together. So it ends up working out. I think right about here is when I decided that I thought it would be pretty neat to just have the upstairs have its own little balcony as well. You know, just for, once again, just adding a little bit more aesthetics to it, the whole structure, a little private viewing area, if you will. Yeah, take a nap, wake up, enjoy the scenery. Some of these pieces that were really close to the tree were actually pretty hard to snap to. So you really have to like find those angles. But we ended up making it work. One thing I didn't plan on was how I was going to create the fire structure, right? Because with any of the fires, you actually have to have it on the ground. One cool little technique I found without even having to look it up, I just kind of stumbled upon it, but the iron beams themselves actually offer a grounded structure, I guess, or placement to it. So you can actually build a fire straight on that iron beam, and there it goes. It solves your in the air fire problem. Once again, with the difficulty for snapping, you kind of almost go into the architecture of the tree. Adding some finishing touches to the staircase. I could definitely have gone through and added even more kind of finishing touches as I went through the build. It's definitely something I still plan on doing, but as a base structure and getting you guys just a feel for kind of what I was aiming for, and to make this video not an hour long, I definitely made a couple little cuts here and there. These portions right here where I had to jump on the ledges, that was probably one of the more scary parts. That, and anytime I did any type of building out onto the kind of the exterior of it was always super scary. Once again, because I'm not using mods, I didn't want to die. I don't want to lose skill points. So that's definitely something to keep in mind as you do it. Just take your time, you know, make calculated maneuvers as you're running through it all. This spot right here, this has come up a couple times in a couple of my builds where you get to this point where there's just not a piece for these edges, and so you kind of have to figure out the best way to make it closed and make it look good. So I kind of just drop a half plank in there, and it closes off pretty good, and it actually looks like that's how it's supposed to be. So kind of just previewing it, seeing what else I can add to it. Right there, I add the cross beam, you know, for that portion, but I end up realizing that I actually want an overhang on the exterior porch anyways. So later on, I end up trashing that piece anyways, and make it just more on the exterior overall spot of the roof. Had to take a quick break right there to just enjoy the scenery as the sun's going down. Yeah, I think right there I realized, because it was raining, that I definitely needed that coverage over the porch. Never want to have to deal with raining. So being wet in this game absolutely sucks. But any potential of not having to deal with that is definitely the way to go. The scary parts right here. Sometimes you'll randomly just see me kind of like run around, kind of clueless on what's going on, because I'm just kind of looking at what's next, right? Where can I go, move on to next to add more finishing pieces to the puzzle, right? And that's pretty much it. That was the final build. And this is kind of my final walkthrough. This is it, the bridge going across with the lit up mushrooms. I kind of saved a lot of the final touches just for myself to go through. You can see it all, kind of the finished product here, with the benches, with the little bar that I did. A lot of these are pretty standard. I didn't feel like I really needed to go through and show the finishing touches, you know. And obviously, you can make your own finishing touches and improve on what you see here. I did realize that I did want some more lighting, so I added the braziers up into the ceiling portion. So I had to actually add a little bit of a roof stack up there. So I ended up making a small modification to the roof. Still, but most of the actual structure stayed the same. Just added finishing touches, added more the little mushrooms, the little yellow mushrooms around the edge of the porch to add more natural lighting. Added a couple rugs here and there, the potions behind the bar. Once again, this is just all aesthetics, but this is a final walkthrough. The view is awesome. It's one of the main reasons I really wanted to do this particular build. It's all fun, right? This one, it has no real core usefulness within the game, because you know you're not really building, you know, a huge smithy here, right? This is just kind of like a fun store some things, play around kind of build. My Treehouse Tavern build, of course. And then here I built these little smokestacks and chimneys that went up into the roof. I wanted to do this kind of like weird little structure here out to the top balcony. But that's going to do it for me. Once again, if you have any recommendations, further advice, tips, or general comments, I'd love to hear them. But until next time, catch you guys on the flippity flip.